it got to a pretty low place and it was just like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. And I always think that it might sound cheesy to some people, but I always think that when you hit rock bottom, whatever your version of rock bottom looks like, there's only one way you can go. You can't go further down. You can only go up. You can either stay where you are, you can go up. And I thought, right, this is as far down as I go. I'm going up from here. And I just
Lisa Maynard Atem is a strategist, speaker, and the founder of Stylisa Foundhers, a platform dedicated to amplify the voices of purpose-driven female founders. With over 20 years' experience in marketing and communications, including leading social media at Harrods, she now works with founders and leaders to shape powerful personal brands rooted in clarity, credibility, and connection. Lisa's work sits at the intersection of storytelling, visibility, and influence, with a focus on helping underrepresented voices access greater opportunities, partnerships, and long-term impact. Let's get into it.
One of the real standout ones was, it was going back like 2009, I think, was before I moved to London. I moved to London in 2010. And I was just in a place where my life it was just a bit rubbish. Like I wasn't getting the opportunities that I knew I was more than worthy and capable of securing. You know, I wasn't in a great place financially. I'd come out of a bad relationship and my life it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't in a great place. And I just knew that this was not meant to be my story. This was not meant to be how life goes for me. And I've always had this inner belief from being very, very young, from about 5 years of age, that I was meant for more. What that more was, and to a degree still is, I couldn't tell you exactly. I have an idea of it, but I think it evolves over time. But I've always had this inner belief and sense that I was meant for more. And at that moment in 2009, I knew that the life that I was living was not the life I was supposed to be living. And I just had enough. I was just like, you know what? I'm going to turn my life around. I'm not sure how it's going to happen, but I'm going to turn my life around. And then I got the opportunity to meet someone who worked for Harrods. She was very kind in introducing me, opening her black book and introducing me to people, which led to me getting an opportunity to go and work for them. So initially I got a 3-month contract. So I basically packed up all of my things, left Manchester and moved to London. And I just thought, okay, it's a 3-month contract, but this is 3 months of my life that could totally turn my life around. And fortunately for me, that was what happened. But I think that was one of the defining moments for me. I just got to a place where I just thought, this is not going to be my life. This is not going to be how this story ends. I'm going to turn this around some way, somehow. And I just made that decision in my head. And I think once I made the decision in my mind and I kind of changed my mindset, I was just determined. So then for a year afterwards, I was just determined to kind of do something, get myself on some kind of positive track. And like I say, this opportunity came along. I interviewed for a back and forth going between London and Manchester for a couple of months. And then on the 1st of September 2010, I started the 3-month contract. And then within I think it was about 6 or 7 weeks, because I'd done well there, it got turned into a full-time position. And I just took it. I really feel like that was my second chance. And I don't think you get second chances in life very often. And I thought, you know what, Lisa, I'm not ready to go home. I'm not ready to pack up and go home after 12 weeks. I'm just gonna keep going. And it was just that. I just made the decision at that point in my life that this is not going to be my story. This is not going to be how this part of my life or this chapter in my life ends. And I just made a decision to do something about it. But I must admit, it got to a pretty low place and it was just like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore. And I always think that it might sound cheesy to some people, but I always think that when you hit rock bottom, whatever your version of rock bottom looks like, there's only one way you can go. You can't go further down. You can only go up. You can either stay where you are, you can go up. And I thought, right, this is as far down as I go. I'm going up from here. And I just made a decision and I just went for it.
I love that. I really love that. And it's so true. Like sometimes it is just making the decision.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people stay where they are because it feels safe, because they don't know and they're too scared to take that next step forward. But actually what you did there, you bet on yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I had the thing is that I just thought I had no choice. It was either stay where I am and stay as I am, or take this chance, which may have ended after 3 months, and just do something. I just thought I just got to a point where I just thought, no, this is not it for me. This is not going to be it. I'm going to fix this one way or another. And very fortunately for me, went in a very positive direction. I know that doesn't always happen for some people, but yeah, I think you just have to make the decision. I think mentally it's the mental challenge that is the biggest hurdle, I think, sometimes. Because for me, I was one of those people who I was scared. I thought, well, you know what, if I go there and it doesn't work out, I don't know anybody there, I don't have many friends there. And I just thought, you know what, Lisa, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back home. It's not the end of the world, and you can start again. You know, every day is an opportunity to start again. If it doesn't work, you've had 3 months in an amazing organization, you're going to come home, you're going to start again, and it's going to be okay. But yeah, I just got to the stage where I just thought, no, I'm not having this.
I love that. And I think that's it. Sometimes it is just that, like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of myself. I'm sick of feeling like this. Something's got to give. And just, betting on yourself and trusting that actually you will figure it out, because at some point in your life so far, you've got yourself to this point. And so you just got to trust yourself again. Like, I can get myself through this. And I think sometimes when you're at rock bottom, you kind of not really allowing yourself to keep going, because you get used to the not self-pity, but like you're almost like allowing yourself to be absorbed with that story.
Yeah.
But it's not the thing that defines you.
Definitely not. And I think another thing to mention as well, Sid, is that you've also got to take into consideration that we live in a society where you're constantly judged. You're judged for the way you look. You're judged, you know, if you're too slim, or you're considered to be too fat, or if you're a woman, or if you're a black, or you're this, or you're that, or you have a disability, or you're gay, or you're trans. It's very hard to build a mindset, I think, in the society we live in, where you bet on yourself, where you just shut out all of the noise and you just think, you know what? I'm going to believe in me. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to shut out all of that noise and all of that criticism. And I'm just going to believe in myself. That's not as easy as it sounds, because like I say, we live in a society where you're just on this hamster wheel of constant judgment. And it's, you know, I always say it's no wonder people have anxiety, or their mental health is affected in a negative way, because you can't do anything right. Like, you do this, someone's got an opinion. You do that, somebody's got an opinion. You've just got to think, right, okay, people are going to have opinions regardless. The most important opinion is the opinion you have of yourself. And you just really have to drown out all of that noise and just be really single-minded and just bet on yourself. But in the society we live in, that's not a very easy thing to do, unfortunately.
Yeah. What would you say to someone listening as a tool to, because it's not something that happens overnight.
Oh, no.
I think it's definitely reps. The more you do, the more it gets better. What would you say is one thing someone could do that's tangible?
I would say one thing that someone could do that is tangible, and that this is something I do to this day. So I have a little note, a note in my notes app. I have tons of notes, but I have this particular note in my notes app, and it's called Mini and Major Milestones. And every single day I record something good that I've achieved, whether it's I've gone for a walk, or I've done my 10 or 20,000 steps, or I've managed to secure a place on a board or whatever, or I've paid a debt off, or I've done something. I record that every single day, and I go back and I read those things. And over the years, I've done it. I've been doing it for years now. I think I've probably been doing it for more than 10 years. And I go back and I read those things. And I think over time, how that has really helped me is, it's like, you know what, Lisa, look at all of these things you've achieved. And they don't necessarily have to be big things. They can be really small things. Like, you may even you did the washing up and you've been putting it off and you've done it. But I think what that does is, it's like you look at all of these things and it's like, right, okay, I've achieved all of these. And over time, that's really helped me in terms of building up my confidence. I mean, I've not always been as confident as I am now, but I think doing little things like that is recording those mini and those major milestones and going back and looking at them. I think that really does something for you. I know it does for me. You know, if I'm having a bit of a down day, I'll go and read it. Oh yeah, I did that day, and I achieved that day, and I paid that off that day. And, you know, I managed to get a meeting with this person that I've been trying to get a meeting for 6 months. I think recognizing your achievements, regardless of the size of those achievements, is very important. So that's something I do every day. Every single day, I'll put a little note in that. And it's just a short sentence. It's got the day and the date and the year. And it's like, right, did X today or did Y today. And I do that every day. And I've been doing it for years. And it's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that, because the brain is not wired for positivity. The brain is wired to seek out the negative. And so actually that exercise alone and making it a daily practice, however you're feeling, it's like, yeah, I'm the shit. I did that. Like, big or small, it's building up your self-worth. it's building up your I'm enoughness and your
Yes.
worthiness. So then you get to take up space and you get to speak it with your chest, or like,
Yeah.
lead with power.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, growing up for you, because we spoke about this just before we started.
Yeah.
Did you have anyone that looked like you that you aspired to?
Initially, I don't think my early years, I don't know that I had anybody outside of my parents. And I think what really helped me when I was very young, and I've talked about this many times, is that my parents went to great lengths to ensure that I understood that I could do anything I wanted to. Now, they were very realistic with that. You are going to have challenges because you're a girl, and obviously you're a girl of colour. That is going to present some challenge, but you don't let that make you think you can't achieve things. So one of the things that, and I talked about it so many times, one of the things that my dad used to do, he would take me to his meetings because he had quite senior positions when I was growing up. And he would sit me around the table, and okay, I was about 5 or 6. I had no idea what was going on. But the whole point of him doing that was like, he wanted me to see him as a Black person in that space and see myself in that space and understand what's possible. It's like, just because you are who you are doesn't mean you can't sit here. And I think that really sparked something in me. One of the things that always stood out for me when my dad took me to these meetings were we were always, I think bar one occasion, the only 2 people of colour around the table. Everybody else was white.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing that stood out. But the other thing that stood out for me, Sid, was that my dad was always in charge of these meetings because he was the most senior person. And I would look at him and he would be talking and people would be responding and they would be doing things off the back of what he was saying. So I'm thinking, and that's when it started to kind of, the cogs in my brain that goes, well, when I get older, if I get myself into a position of leadership or some kind of position where I'm in charge, I can do things that don't just positively affect me, but positively impact other people. But both of my parents were very intentional about exposing me to certain environments and different kinds of people and different cultures because they wanted me to understand that, wherever I find myself is where I am supposed to be, that I shouldn't think that because I'm a girl or because of the colour of my skin that I don't belong in these spaces, just because there aren't many people there who look like you or any people other than you that occupying those spaces. It doesn't mean you don't belong there. But it really wasn't until I got a bit older and I used to see Oprah and it was like, oh, wow, okay, she's a Black woman and look how amazing she's doing. So it was really like, but that was when I got a little bit older. But in my early years, I think, to be honest, it would have been my parents.
I mean, what parents? That is absolutely incredible because they were putting you in rooms to show you it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You be the first. If you've not seen it and you're not around people that are opening those doors for you, you go first and give yourself permission to take up space. We are in a space where doors aren't always opening for marginalised people. What would you say, because I've seen you advocate and really, be a voice for people, for someone who's really struggling right now to open their own doors or having doors open for them, because you're going to need to open your own doors.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's going to have to happen. So what would you say is a practical thing that they can do?
I would say a practical thing you can do, and it's something that I have been very intentional about doing over the last couple of years, is build your own table. I'm not saying that you shouldn't access other tables, because obviously we need to, because all top tables should be diverse. The people that lead us should reflect us. And in many instances, they still don't. But I think that one of the things which you've just mentioned, which I think is important, is not to wait for permission. If you are trying to get through a particular door and that door is not opening or is not opening as easy as you would want, I think you have to build your own table, build your own door and walk through it. And I think in the age that we live in, where, it's very easy in terms of like content creation, it's very easy to kind of create things now. I think you should use that to your advantage. I think one of the mistakes not mistakes, but one of the things I did in the past was I was always beating down a path to somebody else's door and somebody else's table. And I'm still doing that to a degree because I do think that's necessary. But what I'm doing alongside that is I'm building my own table and I'm creating my own opportunities and I'm creating my own platform so that I can kind of put what I want to see in the world out there. I think sometimes what we do, and I've definitely been guilty of this in the past, is that we wait for permission or we wait for other people to create the opportunities for us. And I think sometimes, especially in today's world, with the state of the world at the moment, you have to create those opportunities yourself. Obviously you need to network and build relationships and do all of that kind of stuff. But I think we also need to make sure that we are creating our own opportunities. We are creating our own platforms, our own opportunities to speak out and to advocate for ourselves and for other people. I think that's really important. I think it was Barack Obama who said, we are the people we've been waiting for. So, don't wait whilst you're trying to get a seat at that table, advocate for yourself and build your own table, whatever that table looks like. It could be a newsletter, it could be a blog, it could be a platform, it could be anything, it could just be quotes you put out. But, alongside chasing seats at other tables, make sure that you are building your own table in some way, shape or form.
I absolutely love that. And that is like nail on the head, because it is important to network, because your community, the people that you surround yourself with, will lead you to another conversation who may open that door for you, and you may lean on them at some point in your life, but it has to be side by side.
Definitely.
Taking the action. So I want to ask you, in someone who wants to take action, because I feel like people get so lost in it won't reach anyone. What if I start and no one shows up? These are valid fears, but they're not truths. They're just things that we tell ourselves. Now, I know that you have created an incredible business, but also you took Harrods' social media platform to 1 million followers, I believe.
So when I joined, I think they had just over 30,000 followers across they had Facebook and Twitter. It's now X, but it was Twitter. And then when I left, because we set the Instagram when I was there, and my thing was to get it to 1 million followers, because it was the channel that was set up when I was there. The Facebook and Twitter existed before I joined, and I just became obsessed with getting this channel to 1 million followers. And I think we hit it. It was the 23rd of January 2017. I can remember the day, everything. And by the time I left in November of 2017. The organization had upwards of 3 million followers. So it went from just over 30,000 to approaching 3 million. And over a million of that, like by the time I left, the Instagram was 1.1 million followers. And I was really proud of that. And it wasn't just me. Obviously, I had a team of people, the whole business got behind it. So it wasn't just me on my own doing it. But I was really, really proud of that, because it was a goal that I had just obsessed over for like 6 years. And, we put a lot of work in. It was mainly all organic. It was long before the days of like the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very, very proud moment for me. It was hard work. We put a lot of work in to get there, but it was hard work. But that was the thing that really got me thinking about my own potential, is that if I can do this here, what else can I do? And that was really the catalyst for me kind of going out there and doing my own thing, is because, I achieved this here. And like I said, I didn't achieve it on my own. I had a great team of people working alongside me and obviously support the wider business. But my thing started to be, well, if I can do that here, what else can I do? And that was where I started to really get interested in the exploration of my own potential. It's like, right, what else can I go out there and achieve? Because obviously I was doing that against the backdrop of the world's most famous luxury department store. It's like, well, what can Lisa Maynard Atem achieve in her own right? And that was the thing. That was the job and the position that really set me on this path of, right, I want to explore my own potential. I want to go out there and see what I can do. And also as well, I was always very keen to eventually get to a place where I was using my skills for good, for positive impact. And, obviously I had a very positive impact there, but for good of people, a greater good. I always wanted that to be my end goal. So yeah, that's that story. But no, it was an interesting time. It was fun. I got to do lots of exciting stuff, and I got to achieve something that I'm really, really proud of to this day. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. So if someone's like looking to start now and doesn't have a lot of experience behind them, I do want to say one thing, right? No matter where you are in your journey at the moment, like, everything is getting you to the next best moment. So it's all going to propel you forward. And so if you're in a starting journey, say, you mentioned, I don't know, you want to build a community, you want it to be heart focused, what you've just said there. Love that, giving back and actually making a difference. I think when everybody does that with the heart, with that at its heart, you can build such an incredible ecosystem, because giving back makes it so, like, that's for me, like, my number one thing. It's the thing that lights my soul on fire. If I'm giving back, I know that I'm aligned. But for someone who is trying to find their way and they need to get themselves out there, putting your like marketing hat on, getting yourself out there, what is the strategy that you would suggest people follow?
I think in terms of strategy, I think obviously it's different for everyone, and what works for me may not work for someone else. But I think before you start thinking about putting out content, you've got to be really clear about who you are and what you stand for and what your values are and what you want to be known for. I think in today's world, there's so much noise. When I was working in social media and content many, many years ago, it was a smaller space. It was big, but not as big as it is now. And I think what you find is, what I notice sometimes is people are just putting content out there. And I get it. You want to raise your visibility. You want to be, you want to secure opportunities. I understand all of that. But I think for me, it's about, reputation and the value of what you're doing and your actual values and principles before you start to kind of put yourself out there. You've got to be very, very clear about who you are, what your values are, what you want to say and what you want to be known for. I think sometimes what people do is, in their eagerness to kind of put themselves out there, they just put lots of stuff out there. And I get that, you want to, sometimes people are throwing lots of things at the wall to see what sticks. But for me, I think especially if you want to do work that is around social justice, that is very values driven, you have to be clear about who you are. If you're going to put yourself out there, be very clear about who you are, what you've got to say and what you want to be known for. You've got to get your messaging right. That is the most important thing, reputation before everything else. I think that's very, very important. And then once you've got that figured out, then you can start thinking about, okay, what does that look like in terms of actual content, putting messaging out there. But I think it starts with you. It's like Emma Green's book, start with yourself. Be clear about who you are, what you stand for, what you want to be known for, what you are willing to stand behind and what you're not. I think that's where, for me, that is the starting point for all things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you don't know and you're not clear on who you are, you might start. And then it will drop off as quickly as you start, because it's not actually aligned with who you are. And I feel like you then get lost in that journey because you've not actually got clear on the greater purpose or the greater goal. And even for me, like where I am right now in my life, it's taken me a minute to get here. And now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, it was always about helping others. It was always about giving voice to adversity, how to overcome it, and that you are not defined by your past.
No. And I think as well, you have to, another thing you have to do as well is accept and embrace the fact that you're going to evolve. Where you are today may not be where you are next year, and that's absolutely okay. But as long as your values and your core belief system still holds true, I think that's the most important thing. I think, one of the things that I did when I was younger is like, right, this is who I am and that's set. And it's actually, who I was even 6 months ago is different to who I am today. And I think you have to allow yourself as well to just evolve and not kind of fight that. I think sometimes people want to stay, this is who I am, this doesn't change, but you do, we get older, we evolve, we change, we adapt. And I think you have to allow for that evolution as well in the process.
Yeah, I love that. And it's true. I think if you are staying the same, you're staying stagnant. And if you're on a journey that you want to build something, you better believe that, who you are now to who you were 6 months ago, it has to have changed.
Oh, yeah.
And if it hasn't, then you actually need to be asking yourself, okay, why have I not evolved?
Yeah.
Because it's only going to keep you stuck or in the same places. You do always want to be surrounding yourself with conversations and people that are going to expand your thinking.
Most definitely.
So what does success mean to you?
So success success for me means now it's slightly different to, like, I think if I was to go back to my time in London and my career, it was definitely more about my professional life. And don't get me wrong, success is, that's still important to me. I'm still as ambitious as I ever was. But I think for me, it starts with my foundations, and my foundations are my health, my physical, mental, and emotional well-being, making sure I've got good foundations. So that is, making sure I look after myself as much as possible, making sure I've got a good network around me, my family, friends. I think for me, that's where success begins, because without those foundations, especially without your health, you're nothing. If you don't have good health, it just cannot work. But I think that for me, what success looks like now is it's kind of tiered, it's kind of on levels. So the foundational level is the most important one. That is my health. Who do I have around me? Is my personal life where I want it to be? And no, it's not going to be perfect. It never is. There are always things we want to improve and, take forward and whatever. But for me, it starts there, that my foundations. And if that is, on the whole, generally doing well, then I can deal with anything else that sits on top of that. So I'd say that's my starting point. And then in terms of my professional life, it's kind of, I'm as ambitious as I ever was, but I'm ambitious now for things that kind of speak more to my values. I'm ambitious for ownership as well. I think as women, especially as women of colour, I think ownership is very important. So rather than having, obviously I've got the credibility of Harrods, but that's borrowed credibility. Now for me, it's very much about having my own credibility, building something of my own and taking that out into the world and seeing what I can do with it. And again, just again, exploring the realms of my own potential. But for success, like for me, looks like firstly, personal success in terms of health, family, all that kind of thing. And then everything else sits on top of that, because without those foundations you're nothing. So for me, that is what success looks like. There's personal success and there's professional success, and the two, they kind of coexist side by side.
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say you're focusing on right now?
I'm focusing on making sure my own cup is full. Because the thing is, when you are somebody who wants to help other people, and I have definitely been guilty of this in the past, is you just pour and pour into other people's cup, but then your cup is, a lot of the time my cup has been empty in the past, and it's like, right, okay, if I really want to do this well, the best way for me to do that is to kind of ensure that I am the best person that I can be, because my attitude is that, well, a happy and a healthy Lisa doesn't just benefit me, it benefits other people, it benefits my family, it benefits friends, it benefits my relationships, it benefits the work I do. So I think the thing that I'm focused on most at the moment is ensuring that I I have a firm sense of self, and I can always come back to my center. And if there's something that is not kind of gelling with me or is not making me happy, I'm doing something about it, because I just think, like I say, a happy person doesn't just benefit that person, it benefits the people around them, it benefits the things they're doing. And I think it's important. I think, and it's an opinion that some people will no doubt disagree with me on, but I do think that you as an individual should be at the top of your to-do list. I don't think you should I'm not talking about parents and people who have children, I'm not talking about that, but I'm thinking as an individual, you should be at the top of your to-do list, because like I say, a healthy you benefits everything and everyone around you. And I think what better way to honor the relationships you have and the people you care about by showing up as the best version of yourself. I think that's the best way to honor the things and the people that mean the most to you.
Absolutely. I honestly, it's also the thing that builds your self-worth.
Yeah.
Because when you're showing up for yourself, you're like, for someone who is really like not feeling great about themselves at the moment or doesn't believe in themselves so much, actually just doing the small things every day or every week towards showing up for yourself is keeping promises to yourself. That builds your self-worth up. When you do what you say you're going to do and you actually do it, that teaches you that you always actually are going to show up for yourself. And cool. When you're doing that and you're building your cup up, as you say, the overflow spills into every area of your life, and people will get the best of you. Your energy will elevate because you are now feeling like empowered And it's only going to be like, only good things come from that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it is the one thing that so many people don't prioritize.
Yeah.
And it needs to be, and it's society. I think that's what it is.
Oh,
It's like,
you're told you're selfish. We're told, especially as girls and women, we're taught to be selfless. We're conditioned to be, you've got to put everybody else before yourself. And I just don't agree with that. I just think, well, no, because if you are putting everybody before yourself, what about you? Like, what's left for you at the end of all of that? I don't think that is the way to best serve the people and the things that you love. I think the best way to serve the people and the things that you love is to firstly, like, love yourself and look after yourself and prioritize yourself. Like I said before, what better way to honor the things and the people that mean the most to you? There's no better way to honor those things other than showing up as your best possible self. And that's not to say every day is going to be a great day. It's not. But I think if I'm showing up as the best version of me on that given moment or that given space and time, that can only positively benefit, like us having this conversation or me going out, spending time with my family or my mom, my sister, whoever. I don't believe that it is selfish to prioritize yourself. If anything, I think it's selfless because a happy you benefits everything and everyone around you.
yeah, absolutely. What's one thing that you do that that's your way of filling your cup up?
Saying no.
Oh,
I think you should say no far more than you say yes, because then it makes your yeses so much more meaningful. And being protective of your time and your energy. I think there's a lot of people out there who will gladly take from you. You've got to be able to say no and not feel guilty about it and not justify yourself either. Because I think this is something, especially that we women do. We'll say, oh, no, I can't make it because blah, blah. It's like, you don't need to do that. No, provided you're polite, obviously, and respectful, don't be rude. But no is a whole sentence.
I was just about to say that. It really is.
Yeah.
And like, it's honoring yourself. It's giving power to your voice. It's giving power to who you are. Like, I think so many people, you will look outside of yourself and be like, oh, how are they so confident? How are they X, Y, Z? How do I become more like that? You become more like that by honoring your truth, by honoring yourself, by keeping the promises that you make to yourself versus always keeping the promises to other people.
Yeah.
Like, if you keep more promises to other people, but you always let yourself down, what are you saying to yourself? Yeah. And then that goes to like talk about the language that you speak to yourself. Like, what are the words that you're speaking to yourself? That inner voice that is that your critic or is that your greatest cheerleader? Because if it's a critic, we need to be doing some work on that to shift it.
Oh, definitely.
Greatest cheerleader.
And I find that a lot of the time, the conversations we have with ourselves and the things we say to ourselves, we would never say to other people. So it's like, if you wouldn't say it to other people, you're people too. Why the hell are you saying it to yourself?
Exactly that. Oh, it's so wild. But it's a journey though. Like I have to say, because my inner critic, it was loud.
Yeah. Your inner critic never goes away. But, I always say, and I say this to my mum quite a lot, they are just thoughts, but you've got to be mindful because thoughts can become things and things can become reality. They are just thoughts. It's not a firm belief system. Just because your inner critic is telling you, oh, you're rubbish at this, it doesn't mean that you are. But like you say, it's definitely a process. It's definitely a journey, because having the strength to say, actually, I'm not going to listen to that critic today, or I'm not going to listen to that because I know that's not true. That is easier said than done. It's very, because I used to be the kind of person, I'd do 10 things right and I'd get one thing wrong and I would fixate on that thing for days, weeks, months, even like a year later, like, oh God, why did I do that? And it's like, you've got to develop the ability to not know when to listen to your thoughts and tune into them and know when to tune out. But that's a very, very difficult thing to kind of achieve. I think not easy.
You saying that, it's just making me think. I will have moments where like I'm in the shower and I'm like cringing about something that happened like 15 years ago. And I'm like, okay, but why did that just come up for you? Like, it really doesn't matter. No one's thinking about it. So why are you even? Because for me, like I would say I've mastered my mind quite a lot. Yeah. But there is always going to be moments where you're like,
Definitely. There's always going to be those moments. But I think, again, it's being conscious of the fact that they are thoughts. They're not reality. So it's like, right, you've really got to work on training yourself. Like, right, that is just a thought. That is a thought that I'm not going to pay attention to. That is a thought that I'm going to explore more. But like I say, that's taken me a very, very, very long time to be able to do that. That's not an easy thing. I know for some people it comes naturally than it does to others, but I don't think that's a very easy thing to do. I think we all have an inner critic, and it's just a case of acknowledging that, yes, I have this inner critic, but there are times when I'm going to listen to that voice, and there are times when I am not.
Yeah. And it's as black and white as that. You don't need
Yeah.
to overthink that one.
No.
What is the impact you hope that your work or story has on others?
I think the thing for me, Sid, is that I want people to think for themselves. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I think we live in a world now where, you know, everybody has an opinion about everything, and, you know, there's so much information out. There's almost too much information out there, and some of it is fake news, some of it is misinformation. I think for me, the most important thing is for people to think for themselves and to have a considered and unique point of view. And if I can help facilitate that in some way, great. If you kind of come across my things and decide it's not for you, that's fine. But I think the thing for me is I want people to think for themselves. You know, I think sometimes we're guilty of groupthink, or we're guilty of being influenced by people in terms of, well, I'm just going to go along with that because, you know, everyone else is doing it and whatever. But my biggest thing is I want people to think for themselves. I want people to have their own unique perspective and point of view. And if I can help facilitate that in some way, amazing. If I'm not the person to help facilitate that, that's fine. But yeah, I think I really want people to think for themselves, and as well, not to forget that you have autonomy over your own life. I feel like so too many of us live our lives as though we need permission to live our lives. It's like, you have full autonomy over your life. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I think for me, that's important, thinking for yourself and keeping in mind that you have control over your life. You have full autonomy. You don't have to do something. You don't have to agree with something. You don't have to say something. And I think often we forget that. You know, we live our lives, we go about our daily lives as though, you know, we don't have full autonomy over them, or we don't have permission to do the things we want. We have permission to do anything we want, and that's because we should be giving ourselves permission. We shouldn't be seeking permission externally. And I think too many of us do that. I definitely know I was guilty of that. You know, I felt like I wanted to do things, but I didn't feel like I could start them and then when I kind of interrogated that, it's like, well, where has that thought come from? It's like, if you want to do something, figure out a plan and do it. But that's the thing for me. What I hope people take away from everything I do is that they think for themselves, and they recognize that they have full autonomy over their own lives.
I love that. And it's so powerful because, you know, everyone should and deserves to have full autonomy.
Yeah, of course.
Autonomy over their lives. Like, it's ridiculous to me that outside validation feels more important than, or being validated externally. Yeah. And if you live your life because you want the outside validation, yes, okay, it's great to have accolades, you know, striving towards things, but they have to be aligned with your truth.
Yeah, of course,
your values. Like, if you're losing yourself in the process of that, and you're doing it because then people will think a certain way about you or speak about you in a certain light, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons.
Oh yeah, and if you know, if that's what you're looking for, the thing I always say to people is that, why would you want to be around people who judge you on the basis of XYZ? You know, if the content of your character is not good enough for a person, then that's it. You know, and I think as well, you've got to be very careful when you base your opinion of yourself, or if you're somebody who seeks external validation, because it makes you vulnerable, because there are people out there who will take advantage of you because they know that actually you take your sense of self or sense of self-worth from what they or other people think about you. And I think you have to be very, very careful. There are some instances where you need external validation, you know, like in a professional sense. That's a slightly different thing. But I think when it comes to you as a human being, your validation we should all be working on our validation coming from us, coming from our internal self, not from external opinions or external voices. Because I just think that there are people out there who don't have good agendas, who would use that to their advantage and not to yours. So I think for me, the most important validation is your own validation of yourself, not validation from other people.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be a piece of advice that you wish the version of you 20 years ago would have had?
Just stop waiting for permission. I found that I was very, even though I had all of these great ideas and I had all of this potential, I think what I was definitely guilty of was I allowed fear to hold me back and felt right, well, oh, what I used to do, which I don't do now. I mean, I'll do this when, I was always waiting for the conditions to be right. And I think if I could go back 20 years and give Lisa of 20 years ago some advice, I'd be like, the conditions are never right. You either start or you don't. You start now or you don't start. And yeah, I think that would probably be the main thing is like, and just give yourself permission. The only person that needs to give you permission to start is you. You don't need to wait for permission from anyone else. And I think, again, it goes back to the autonomy. It's like you have autonomy over your own life. You want to do something, figure out a plan, figure out the logistics of it, and then go and do it. So I think those would be the things I would say to myself is to just give myself permission to do things, and don't be waiting for permission, or don't be waiting for the conditions to be absolutely right. Because the reality is the conditions never are absolutely right. And they're never going to be. It's either, you do it or you don't. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. And then it's just, if you don't do it, you're closing the loop. So you can
Yep.
actually just be present in your life instead of like harboring this thing, like, I really want to do it. And then you feel bad about yourself. Like you're just beating on yourself
Yeah,
for not doing the thing.
definitely.
We have so many tools available to us, because I think as well, like, you don't know where to start by going to a meetup with people that are in the rooms that you're trying to break into, having conversations with people that are actually going to help you expand your thinking and make you believe that actually it's possible for you. And it won't be that they speak those words over you, it's the
No,
conversations that you hear.
no, I agree. I just think you need to, you just give yourself permission. Like, you don't need to wait for other people to tell you to do things or whatever. You just need to do. And I think that was a thing I was guilty of when I was younger, is that I was just waiting for something, and I couldn't even tell you now, Sid, what I was waiting for. I was just, I just kind of let fear and
What is that fear?
I don't know. I actually I can't tell you now, because I just think maybe it's fear of the unknown, because nobody knows what the exact outcome is going to be, do they?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I can honestly say I'm not entirely sure what that fear was. I put it down to fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
But I don't.
'Cause
I
think
actually don't know when I think about it.
And I think that's what I would advise the listener to think about. Like, if there is something holding you back and it's fear, what is that fear?
Yeah.
Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of success? Is it fear of being seen? Is
Yeah.
it fear of being heard? Because then you can work on that and actually take action, take messy action, because, the cost of success is embarrassment. You've got to start, and you're not going to be great in the beginning, but the starting is the whole point. Like, because you learn the skills as you go along and it only gets better. I think for me, though, my fear was actually being seen and being vulnerable, because in order to take up space, I have to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to be seen.
Yeah.
And that whole dialogue was stuff that I still needed to unpack. You are on a journey of your own. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I left my director role about, what was it? It was 2023. So in April 2023, and then May 2023, I started working for myself, just advising founders in terms of building their brands and like marketing and communications. But then about a year ago, in fact, April of 2025, I started building a platform called Stylisa Foundhers, where I focus on exploring the relationship between visibility, funding, influence, and power through the stories of women founders and leaders. And I'll be honest, when I first started it was just like, again, I really wanted to, as a woman building a business, I wanted to kind of support other women building businesses. And I was meeting all these incredible women who were doing these amazing things and nobody ever heard about them. So I thought, right, I'm going to dedicate a section of my website to telling these stories, interviewing these women and sharing these stories. And then it's just kind of grown in terms of its momentum. And now fast forward to present day, it's been going for just over a year. I'm building it out into its own fully fledged platform. I've got different strands to it. So you've got Foundhers, which are the main interviews for the women building their businesses. And then you've got the founder funders bit, which is the finance branch, which talks about all things money in relation to women. And then more recently, I've set up Founders Boardroom, and this is interviewing women who sit at top tables at boards, making key decisions, women who influence policy. And it's just kind of grown into this whole thing, which is, for me, is fantastic. And I'm talking to like potential sponsors and investors, and it's just become this whole entity and force in its own right. And it's really great for me, because I was talking to a journalist about it the other day, and I was saying that I'm actually my intended audience, because I'm a woman, I'm building a business, I'm navigating so many things, finance being one of them in relation to my business. I also sit on a number of boards and have been doing that for the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm actually building this platform for women like me. And it's just a really amazing thing. And it's opened up so many interesting conversations. I've interviewed women from all over the world, South Africa, Dubai, everywhere. And it's just a really exciting thing for me. And I found it's really been inspiring and motivating for me. It's like, right, all of these women are doing all these incredible things. Right, what am I going to do? Like, where am I going to take my business? And it's great to be able to shine a light on women who don't necessarily have lots of visibility, even though they should. And the great thing has been that it has resulted in some really positive results for some of the female founders. Like, one female founder managed to secure an angel investor off the back of her interview. And it's just been absolutely fantastic. It's been amazing.
That is absolutely amazing. Incredible.
So yeah, and I'm really excited, and I'm growing it even more. And I've got lots of exciting things planned for it in the future. So yeah, it's just a fantastic thing. I'm really glad I started doing it. And like I say, when I started it, it was just like, I'm going to interview these great women and showcase them. And now it's just become its own thing. I'm going to be partnering with some of the female founders that I've interviewed on projects. And yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. I'm really, really loving it.
That's so amazing. So essentially, you had this idea, and then it's just snowballed.
Yeah.
And it's opened up doors and avenues.
Yes. It's opening so many doors and avenues. And I'm being introduced to some incredible women, some incredible people, allies. It's just, yeah. And I think this is what I was talking about before at the beginning of the conversation, where I was saying, build your own table. Because I was sitting there thinking, right, okay, there's all these amazing women out there. They're all doing amazing stuff. How come nobody knows about them? And I'm one for, instead of complaining about something, Lisa, do something about it. And I thought, you know what? I know my way around, interviews and stuff like that. I've got a background in marketing and communications and branding. Why don't I use that and do something? Instead of complaining about the problem, why don't I try and do something about it? And that's basically what I did. It's like I identified a gap somewhere, and I just did something about it in my own way. And that's why I say to people, alongside chasing seats at other people's tables, make sure you're building your own. And Stylisa Founders is definitely my own table, and which means I can invite who I want to that table, which for me is a really massive, massive thing.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I think there's so much you can take away from your journey, because you didn't have the great picture to begin with.
No.
You've just allowed it to blossom.
Yeah.
And these things will happen. So don't, if you're listening and you're like, I have no idea where to start, you don't need to figure it all out. You just need to take the first step and trust that it will actually unfold just as it's meant to.
Yeah. So, I always say, like, walk in faith, but be grounded in reality. It's like, don't become so optimistic that you start thinking everything is going to be perfect, because that's just not how life works. So I always think, go forward in faith, but always be grounded in the reality of things. That's really important. By all means, be optimistic, but be realistic with that optimism as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. So how can people work with you?
So people want to work with me, they can visit my website, www.stylisa.com. That's STYLISA. That's also my handles on social media, on Instagram. You can find me Stylisa, LinkedIn. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Lisa Maynard Atem. But yeah, just head to my website, www.stylisa.com, and you can kind of find out more about me there, work with me there, get in touch, and yeah, look forward to hearing from you.
Amazing. That's so great. And I'll also pop that in the footnotes of this episode. For someone who is in the thick of it right now, what's one piece of advice that you want to give them?
I would say the one piece of advice I would want to give them is to make sure that they always have they always have their sense of self. They can always come back to their center. I think that's been something that has been invaluable for me. Like when things have gone wrong, and they've gone wrong often, as much as I've achieved a lot of things have also gone in the other direction as well. I think what really helps me and what has saved me sometimes is I can always come back to my sense of self. I always come back to that internal center. Whatever's going on around me is fine, but like once I know I have that internal strength that I can lean on and pick myself back up, I think that's really important. I think that matters more than anything, because the reality of life is things are not always going to go to plan. And you've got to be able to, when that happens, and it will happen, you've got to be able to kind of center yourself and come back to yourself and pick yourself up. And you can only pick yourself up if you have like a strong internal sense of self and a strong internal compass, if you like. So that's the thing I would work on. For anybody who's going through the trenches, I would say, just keep going. It will get better. It might not happen straight away. It will get better. But I think what's really important is that you can always come back to yourself, always be able to come back to you. It all starts with you. Like I say, whatever's happening in my life, and I've had some really bad experiences and bad things happen to me. I've always been able to come back to Lisa, to the core of who I am. And that's really, really helped me to get through things. It's taken me a while to fine tune it, but I've got to that place now where if something bad happens, yeah, it's awful. I acknowledge it. I acknowledge the reality of it. Then it's like, right, okay, I've always got me to come back to. So, right, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep going. And as well, don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself grace. We're very good at giving other people grace. I don't think we're always as good as we should be at giving ourselves grace, and like allow yourself to sit with things. I think sometimes things go wrong. People want to just they want some kind of solution and just move on. It's like, actually, sometimes you've just got to sit in the reality of it and acknowledge it and just be with it. And then, right, okay, where do you go from there? But I think you have to allow yourself to feel things. It's not nice sometimes, but allow yourself to feel things, allow yourself to sit with things, but just don't allow yourself to stay there, because that's where it can start to get a bit dangerous. Recognize the reality of the situation, whatever the situation is, but try not to stay in that place. Always try to move yourself out of it in some way, shape or form.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so important. What is not outwardly expressed is going to inwardly repress. And it will manifest in various different things. So your body is always speaking to you. And I am really not in this world of toxic positivity. No, not for me.
No, I don't believe in that.
Yeah. We are human beings. We're going to have so many different emotions, and they're all valid. It's how you process it. It's giving voice to it. And then just moving forward.
I believe in positivity, but positivity tempered with realism. I'm not going to say, everything's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. Sometimes things are going to be amazing and sometimes they're going to be crap. That's life. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that and we recognize that and we're honest about it. And I think as well, another thing is that people need to be honest with themselves about who they are, what they really think and what they really want. And sometimes that is going to be at odds with other people. But I do think, if you are going through the trenches, another thing to think about is just, or to focus on, is just being really, really honest with yourself. What do you want? Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to go? What does that look like? I think you have to be really honest with yourself about what you want and who you are. And like I say, some people will embrace that and some people won't. And you've got to learn to be okay with that. You're not going to be liked by everybody. Not everyone's going to agree with you. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And I think you have to learn somehow to be okay with that.
Yeah. Nail on the head there, Lisa. What does returning to you actually mean to you?
Returning to me means what I touched on before, and that's just always having that sense of self, that knowing that, even if I am going through a bad situation, I can always come back to my center. I think that's really important, and always knowing who I am as a person and what my boundaries are, what my belief system is, what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not willing to accept. I think that's the thing that's what returning to myself means for me, is that being very clear about who I am, being very clear about what I want in my life, what I don't want, like say what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not willing to accept, and being very honest about it. I think we have a real problem with honesty because people are scared of what people might think, or they're scared of what the outcome might be. Now, obviously, be respectful and be polite, but I think it's important to be honest. And that's one thing for me, is that I want to always ensure that I'm being honest with myself about who I am and what I really want. And I think that's really important. I think for anyone, that's incredibly important.
Yeah, I love that. And it's when you are actually true to yourself and you're honest about your desires and what you want to get out of life, you will actually give yourself permission to have
Yeah.
that. It's
Yeah.
when you're hiding from it,
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
actually allowing yourself to take that space up.
No,
because
no.
You're hiding away in the shadows.
Yeah, and you're being outwardly what you think other people will approve of. It's like, that's not the way. That's not the path to a happy and fulfilled. It's not for me. It might work for other people. I haven't met anybody that it's worked for, but I think if you're not being honest about who you are, what you really want, how can you ever get to a place of peace and a place of happiness? Surely you can't. And I think that's important because, like I said before, you know, a good version of you, a positive version of you benefits not just you, it benefits everybody around you. And I don't know how you would achieve that if you are not being true to who you are. And like I say, I think as well, you know, saying no is a big thing. It's a huge, huge thing. I think far too often we say yes to things that we should be saying no to out of obligation, or we feel guilty or whatever. And it's like, it's not horrible to protect your boundaries. It's not horrible to protect your peace. If anything, you're respecting yourself and you're respecting them because you're being honest with them. It might not be what they want to hear and they might not agree with it, but actually I think honesty is a form of respect. And I would love for more people to just be really honest with themselves about who they are, what they really want, and having the courage to say, actually, you know what, this is not for me. This does not align with me. This is not right for me. This is not what I want to do.
I am in awe of you. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Return to You. I hope something in today's conversation stayed with you, even if it's just one thought to carry into your week. Sometimes that's all it takes. If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't yet, leave a review. It takes 30 seconds and it means everything for getting this show in front of the people who need it the most. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you listen. Come find me on Instagram and tell me, what are you returning to? Until next time, keep coming back to yourself.